All right, this video is about transmissions, really important, guys. And welcome back. There's a lot of stuff that's changed in the Volkswagen transaxle business. There's a lot of parts that aren't available that used to be. Like the 344 gears I put in both of my buses, they're not available. These buses have 344 with an 89 fourth. I'll tell you what that is a little bit later. So in order for you to not get ripped off when you go to a transmission guy, you really need to know what the gear ratios are, and I'm going to kind of go over how you calculate them. And you got to do this, you guys. It's really important because there's a lot of stuff floating around out there right now. They got Chinese 344s, you can buy those, and there's Chinese gear 388s you can buy. There's a lot of Chinese gears. There's a Chinese bus fourth that they make. And you need to know when you go to your transmission guy what you're getting, because you might be thinking I'm comparing apples to apples, but you go to one transmission guy and he's not selling you apples, he's selling you oranges. So you need to know what is in your transmission. You know, there's about 4 or 5 different guys that have different freeway flyers, and they call it a freeway flyer. So you go to a transmission guy, you go, yeah, I want a freeway flyer. Okay, I'll make you a freeway flyer. You need to know which freeway flyer you're getting, because there's a couple different ways to do it. So, and one costs a lot more than the other. And there's a lot of ways to do it really now with all these different China gears. And one guy might be $1,000, $2,000 more than the other, but he might be giving you a lot more. So you need to know what you're getting. It's really important you know the gear ratios and how to calculate them. So this is for bugs, not this early, but bugs. Split windows our split case transmissions have a different whole set of rules. And buses. The first thing you need to know is how to calculate your gear ratios. So in your bug, your typical most common gear ratios on a bug are these right here: a 412 ring and pinion and an 89 fourth, and it's 0.89. So you just take your 412 times your 0.89, that gives you your final drive. I didn't put the numbers in because it's going to be different based on what you're doing. On a bus, it's about, it could be the same if you have straight axles, but if you have a big nut, it's the standard gears are 412 82. Now sometimes in a bus runs in reverse, okay, the transmission, the ring and pinion's flipped on it. So some guys will take a bug transmission and put it straight in a bus. Are those numbers the same? No. If you put this transmission and you flip the ring and pinion and you put it in a bus, you know, it's not going to work at all. You're going to have real big problems. You're probably going to burn up a motor before you figure it out. And then because you timed it times 1.26, and that's your final drive, that's your big nut. Your small nut's really bad. So look at these gear ratios: 412 times 82, 1.39. And that's because the earlier buses that had the big nut, or the small nut, had 15-inch rims and really tall tires. So it kind of almost made up for that. But not really, it still was geared even lower than the late model. An important thing to know is your tire size will make all the difference in the world with your gear ratios. The taller the tire, the more freeway gear you get. In other words, the taller the gear ratio, the final drive is going to be higher with a taller tire. So let's say you have a transmission that doesn't have ideal gears, and you're going down the freeway and the motor's screaming. All you got to do, what you can do is put a taller tire on it, and that will help with it not making the engine scream as much. So you're going to get a better highway driving experience with a taller tire. If you have a motor that's screaming, then you might want to look at your tire sizes and make some changes. And the same thing applies, like if you're running low profile tires, you need to know what the outside circumference of that tire is, or the height of the tire is, and look at the original tire height. Go on those tire charts online, and if your tire's a lot shorter and then your engine's screaming going down the road, then that's why, because you got too short of a tire for the transmission gears. So these things all work together. But the first thing I want to talk about is what's going on in the transmission world. You might get a price from one guy and he goes, oh, 3,000 bucks. Another guy says 1,200. Okay, that you may or may not be getting what you're paying for. It might be either way. You know, you could be getting a Chinese gear set in there and you didn't know it, and then you find out later, oh, when you ask. So the key thing is you need to know what to ask the guy that you're getting the transmission done. Listen, do you use a Chinese ring and pinion? And you know, if you want to gamble on that, that's up to you. You're going to save money maybe, okay? But if a guy's charging you $3,000 and he's using a Chinese ring and pinion, okay, and he's using Chinese bearings, okay, and you know, you might be not getting, you know, we might find another guy that uses, for the same price, uses the European gears and stuff like that. So there's those things are out there, okay, and they're floating around. I've heard some guys say that some of the transmission guys are saying that the Chinese gears are fine. Some guys I'm talking to say no, they're having problems with them, you know, leaving metal shavings in the oil and then wearing off because they're noisy when you first put them in, and that noise translates into some wear, and then they're ending up with metal shavings in the oil, and it wipes out all the bearings. So, you know, I'm getting conflicting information. So it's up to you to know if what you're getting and what you're spending money on. If you're going to go cheap, get the Chinese gears, you know, you need to know what you're getting and pay for it accordingly. And that's why I'm making this video, because there's a lot of stuff that's changed. So some guys are saying, you know, I want to get the same transmission you have with the 344 gears. Well, you can't get 344s right now. I think they're on back order till September or something like that, and who knows, because of COVID and whatever, I don't know, some companies went under that were making them. All kinds of crap has happened, but you can still get the same final drive gear ratio as the 344 does. I used a 344 instead of a, you know, 412, normal 412. Let's get you up a little closer. I use a 344.89, a bug fourth gear, okay, with the 1.26, you know, and it comes out to 385, okay. What you can get now is you can get a 388 ring and pinion, and I hear they have a 77 that's a European made gear. They also have a 77 Chinese gear, and you know what you're getting. So they have a 77 European gear, and you times that, and it's a little bit better on the final drive. But the problem is your third gear isn't going to be you're not going to have that third gear climbing ratio, which I really like, having that nice tall third gear so that I can go 65 in third to get on the freeway, and when I'm climbing a hill I can go up the hill at 55 in third and not worry about getting rear-ended. So you can have them also put in a taller third gear. So there's a way to still get a similar setup by using 388s. It's all math. You know, you have to know this stuff. I'm telling you, when you talk to your transmission guy, you need to be able to speak his language. And I'm not saying you need to know how to do this. I don't build my own transmissions, but I know how to talk to my transmission guy about what I'm getting, whether I'm getting China gears or I'm getting, you know, some good European gears, and am I getting German bearings in there? Those are all questions you need to ask your transmission guy so that you're getting apples to apples. So the other thing I hear all the time now is the guys go, oh yeah, I got a freeway flyer. I go, which freeway flyer did you have? And they go, oh, I don't know, it's freeway flyer. It's like, no, there's a 412 82 freeway flyer. There's a 388 89 freeway flyer. There's probably a couple other ways to do it the guys are doing. I don't know, you know. And so there's a 412 82 Chinese 82. You might get a 412. There's a lot of 412s floating around. You can usually find a 412 gear set used that's good. It's becoming less and less because the cores are becoming less and less. There's less and less cores. That's part of the problem. In fact, there's not very many 388s floating around anymore that are good. So they have to go with new 388s. And the new 388s are really, really, really expensive from Europe. So there's also a Chinese 388. So you can get the Chinese 388, 89, and you might think I'm getting, you know, a German 388s and a 89 fourth, and you got Chinese bearings. You don't know that. Better ask. That's all I'm trying to say in this video. You need to know what your gear ratios are that you're getting and ask, what am I getting? Am I getting Chinese bearings? You know, if that's what the chance you want to take, then that's up to you. But you shouldn't be comparing apples to apples. You should be comparing apples to apples with your transmission work, not just going by, you know, I want a freeway flyer, and then you just put it in. You don't know what you're getting. So the only way I do freeway flyer myself, when I go talk to the transmission guy and I want a freeway flyer, I do a 388 ring and pinion and an 89 fourth. So that's kind of what was in some of the late models. Some of the late models had like a 91, I think, fourth gear, or 93. Okay, so your final drive isn't very good on some of those ones where the case halves are, you know, the transmission that came in was a Super Beetle, right? So one side of the case opens up, the other side doesn't. So it'll have the 388s in it usually, but it might not have an 89 fourth. So you might go, hey, I'll just buy a late model trans and I'll get what I want that way. You may not. You know, you need to know what's in there. It's really important. That's why it's worth paying to get a rebuild, because then you know what you got and you can work with that when your tire sizes, and then when your RPMs match up to what you're looking to get, then you're getting what you pay for. A lot of guys, the most common freeway flyer is going to be your 412 82. It's going to be a 412 82 then to the final drive instead of the 412 89. Stock was a 412 89 in 1967, okay, and up. So what you're trying to do is get a little bit more freeway speed. So 412 82, you can do the math on that. But if you go with the 388, it gives you a taller first gear, second gear, third gear. So when you're climbing hills in third, you're going a faster speed, it's safer. So that's why I like the 388. Plus, I like that really nice tall first gear, second gear, third gear. You drive one of those once and you'll be like, oh man, this is the way to go. So I'm not saying I don't know anything, really. I don't know whether the Chinese gears are any good. Some guys, I'm getting conflicting information on that. Personally, I probably wouldn't want them in mine. But that's going to be up to you and your pocketbook. And so when you're getting that freeway flyer, you need to know if it's a 412 freeway flyer, because it's kind of I really don't like the 412 freeway flyer because it's got a real big gap between third and fourth. So you're in third gear, wah, and then fourth gear, wah. Okay, I just don't like that. So again, you want to know that when you get it and have it built, and compare the price, because a 388 freeway flyer is a lot more expensive to build than a 412. Okay, because all they got to do is put a Chinese fourth in it. And you need to know, again, if there's a Chinese fourth or is that a real bus German fourth. Like I said, there's not that many of them floating around anymore. There's less and less cores, so they're not able to get used good 82s out of bus transmissions. So they're getting, some guys are getting the Chinese ones, but they do make a German one. Okay, or not German, but it's European. So not quite the same. I don't know. Maybe it is. And to get those real nice freeway flyer bus gears that I have, the really high ones, so they're selling the typical freeway flyer for a bus is going to be a 388 82 1.26. That has, I think, a 4.0 final drive, if I remember right. I'm just doing the math in my head. I was going to do it in my calculator. I don't want to. Where if you go with the 412/77, then, you know, that's a better gear ratio. It's like, it's better than, let's see. I think I said 412. I meant 388. 388 times 0.77. Oh, geez. Clear. Try this again. It's 0.77 times 1.26. So that's 376. That's even better than the 385 that I have. So I'm running 385 final drive. So yeah, you know, if you're getting the bus freeway flyer, you need to know, okay, is it a 412/8, is it a 388/82 or 388/77? And does it have a taller third? Those are all things that you need to ask your transmission guy when you're going to get the stuff, and sit there and do your homework. Maybe watch this video a couple of times until you get it. And then get your calculator out. Go on the Ratwell Gear Ratios website and sit there and do some math until you figure it all out, until you really know this stuff inside and out. So when you go to your transmission guy, and you go, and one guy goes, hey man, I'll do that for $3,000, and another guy says, I'll do that for $4,000. You're gonna know what you're getting if you're paying, if you want to pay the $4,000. Maybe you only want to pay $3,000, but you want the $4,000 transmission. You're probably not going to get it, guys. You got to make sure that you know what you're getting, what you're paying for. And you might get a guy who's using all Chinese stuff, and he's selling it for the top dollar. You know, you don't know today. So you need to ask. You need to ask them. You need to find out what they're doing. In the near future, I believe they're going to be coming out with another 344 gear set. I don't know. I think it's just been on back order, or something's been going on. I don't know all the details. The transmission guys do. You can ask them. But I just wanted to make this video so you guys got a heads up of what's going on in the transmission world. You might be seeing those prices now, and you're going, oh my God, they're so much more expensive than they were. And yes, they are. So here's an option B. Let's say you looked at transmission prices, you've got a bus, and you're just like, oh, this just isn't going to happen right now, because the price of these transmissions have gone literally, I think they're about 3 times what they were when I paid for mine. So anyway, when you go to get your transmission stuff and you find out it's too much money, what you can do to compensate for that is put on taller tires. So if you've seen those guys around that have the off-road tires on their buses, they have the knobby tires. If you don't mind that look, if you got a stock height bus and you want to get a little more out of it, what the tire size they're using is 27 by 850 by 14 on the early buses, and I believe on the late buses. On the early ones, I believe they're using the same tire size on the 15-inch. I don't know that for sure. If you have a earlier bus and you have those size tires, comment below so we can like your comment or pin it or whatever, that you have the 27 by 850 by 15s on yours. I'll put a link in the description on Amazon. They have a really good price on them. You can buy them directly through Amazon. take them down to your local tire guy and have them put them on. You know how the little guy in the little shop on the corner that, you know, get a price from him for just installing the tires. What I'm looking at, you could get with a stock gear ratio bus. I know for sure, and this is one thing you guys may or may not know. A lot of guys are like, oh yeah, mine's got the stock gears. How do you know? You need to know your engine RPMs and all that to do it. I know the transmission in this one was stock because it had all the original proper. It's a 67, so 67 was a unique transmission in a bus. It had all the, you know, it had the reverse light switch. It had the opened up for 12 volt. It had all the stuff that was right. It didn't look like it had ever been out of the bus. So I was sure that that was the original transmission in this. And when I drove it, I know what it feels like. I know what it sounds like with the gear, how much the engine RPMs are from driving one. And I know that it's a stock trans. If you know that you got a stock big nut trans, or even a well, I don't know, a small nut, I don't think you could really do much with it. You're gonna have to get big nut axles. You could get big nut axles, put them on a small nut trans, and then put the 15-inch 850 or whatever, 27 by 850 or by 15s if they fit. I don't know if they fit on the, I think they do, but I don't know for sure. You could put those tires on yours. That will get you another, I think it's 2 inches taller than stock. And what that'll do is that'll give you another 5-8 miles an hour on the freeway. So if you're looking at freeway flyers and you're going, hey, I can't afford that, you know, for about 500 bucks, you could buy a set of tires and solve your problem. You know, quite a bit of it. You're not going to get the same thing as what I have. You're not going to be going 80 miles an hour on your bus, which I wouldn't recommend doing anyway. But you're not going to be able to do that. But it will make it a lot more drivable on the highway by just changing the tires. So anyway, I just thought I'd make this video for you guys that are not aware. Maybe you've been looking at transmission prices and you're comparing prices, but you need to compare apples to apples when you do that. And make sure that you're getting what you pay for, because like I said, there's a lot of funky stuff floating around right now. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.